How do I rate books? What books got me into reading? What's my favorite genre to read? Find out the answers to these questions and more, because today I am doing the Get to Know My Reading Taste tag. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life and welcome to a tag video. Today we are going to get to know my reading tastes, and the questions in this tag are really fun. I first saw this tag when my friend Miriam from Miriam Elizabeth Reads did this tag, and I thought these questions were so great and really fun and a really good way to get to know the booktubers' reading tastes, like truly what my reading taste is like. So that's what you're about to find out. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the two creators of this tag. They are Sam from Thoughts on Tomes and Mari from My Name is Marinez. And I think they've created such a fun little tag here, and I hope that you will share some of your answers in the comments, or if you're a booktuber, I would love to have you do this tag as well and tag me so that I can see your answers, because I think this is really a fun one. And if you're new here, I share cozy books. I love to read backlist books, and I particularly love British women's literature. And so if that is something that sparks interest with you, then come along and find out a little more about my reading tastes. Let us get straight into the questions. Question 1 is, how do you rate books? Give a quick rundown of how you do your star ratings, or if you don't use star ratings, how you evaluate books. I definitely use star ratings. I love a good system for something, and so I have always thought in terms of star ratings, or, like on a scale of maybe 1 to 5. And how I utilize that, for me, 5 stars doesn't mean that the book is absolutely perfect, that it's the best book that's ever written. But for whatever reason, when I read it, it spoke to me. Something about it really resonated with me, and I absolutely loved it. I liked the writing, I liked the characters, I was drawn in by the plot. So really, it was a very overall well done book, and one that drew me in and went straight to my heart. So that's 5 stars. I think I rarely give 1 stars, especially since I have become a much more decisive DNFer. And so I will give up on a book rather than struggle through it to the end. I'm not a completionist. I don't think you should read books you aren't enjoying. At least I don't want to read books I'm not enjoying. And so very few books have I rated 1 star. Occasionally that will happen. There have definitely been books I've read for different book clubs or things like that I have given low star ratings to, that I did end up finishing. And oftentimes if I DNF something, I will still give it 1 star if I made it over a certain percentage. Like if I read more than 30% of the book, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the book and the writing, and I can give it at least a star rating based on that. Oftentimes though, if I DNF something very early, I don't give it any stars because I didn't read it and I can't give it any kind of rating justification. A 3-star book to me is one that was good. I enjoyed it, but I probably won't reread it. It's definitely not going to be an all-time favorite, though I have sometimes rated books 3 to 3.5 stars, and then for some reason been drawn back to them and read them a second time and have had them move up in star ratings. So that can happen, but very rarely does that happen. I do like to give half-star ratings because I feel like it gives a little bit more nuance to the star rating system. I wish Goodreads allowed you to give half stars. I will always put in the description box where you can write your review of the book if I gave it a half star. So at the very top, I'll always put 4.5 stars, 3.5 stars. Because sometimes it is just slightly better than, say, a 3-star or a 4-star book, and I feel like it deserves that extra half star, but it's not quite good enough to make it up to the next level. So that is how I do my book ratings. And if you want to see some of the books that I have rated, you can follow me on Goodreads. My Goodreads link is always in the description box below the video, and I would love for us to be friends over there. And yeah, you can check out what I've read and what I love and what I've DNF'd and everything in between. Question number 2, how do you approach reviewing books? What's your review style? Are you analytical, emotional, casual, or structured? I think in general, when I'm just reading for myself for pleasure, I tend to be an emotional, casual reviewer. Oftentimes, and I'm going to just use Goodreads as an example, when I review books on Goodreads, I will just quickly jot down a couple of lines so that I myself can remember when I go back to look at that book what I thought of it, and maybe a little something to jog my memory about why I loved it. And I'm not necessarily writing reviews for other people to read and get informed as to whether or not they should read that book based on what I have said about it. Now, I do then sometimes give in-depth reviews, sometimes for books that I've really loved, sometimes for books that I have not enjoyed for whatever reason. And then I will be a little more analytical and structured in my approach to those reviews. I will say that having been an English major and having analyzed literature for classes, I tend not to do that in my reviews because then it sort of feels like homework to me. And even 30 plus years later, I still feel that way. And really the review, I feel like it's mostly just for me. I feel like there are other people out there who are really good at giving wonderfully in-depth reviews of books. And part of why I started BookTube was because I often find it easier to just verbally articulate my thoughts on a book rather than to sit down and write them out in a written review. So that is my review style. Question 3. What's the book that made you a reader? Whether it was your first favorite or the one that got you hooked, what book started it all? To be perfectly honest, I have no idea what book was the first book that just completely drew me in and I was like, oh yes, this reading thing is fantastic and I'm gonna do this hardcore from now on. But I do have a couple of books, and these are actually my childhood editions that I read from when I was a child. And these books definitely influenced me in terms of making me love reading and characters and story. Whether they were the very, very first, I can't say. I will say around age 8 or 9 was when I really sort of took off and hit my reading stride. I'd always been reading before that, but it was around 2nd or 3rd grade that I just became a voracious reader. And 2 of the books that were influential in that, the first one was Pippi Longstocking by Astrid Lindgren. I adore Pippi, and I remember reading the book, I remember watching the movie, and I just fell in love with her. I loved how spunky and quirky and unusual she was, and I just appreciated that so much. As a relatively sort of straight and narrow kind of person myself, I'm always drawn to those sort of free spirit characters because I wish I was more like that, but I'm just not. I have an inner free spirit, but on the outside, I keep her very much reined in. So I love when characters just let her run wild and free. So Pippi was definitely the beginning of that. And then another book that really, really just is one I always think of so fondly and was one of my favorite books as a kid. Always, like, it's probably the first book I think of when someone says, what was your favorite book as a child? And that is From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler by E.L. Konigsberg. And again, this book just entranced me. I loved the idea of these children who ran away to a museum and then lived in it. I mean, in a big city all by themselves. I just loved all the little details about how they collected coins from the fountain so that they had money to buy food, and how they would hide under the beds, and then all of the things they would do at nighttime while nobody was there. And I was just completely drawn into the world of these two children. And as the main character is a young girl, of course, that spoke to me as well. I am always in the mood for a young female protagonist in middle grade books. And I loved this so much. So those two books, huge influence on me and definitely made me into the reader that I still am today. Question 4. Do you have a genre niche? Are there certain genres you gravitate toward, or do you read widely across genres? Yes, I both have genres that I prefer and enjoy, and then I also do kind of read fairly widely. Like I'm not opposed to reading genres that I don't normally gravitate towards if there is a particular book that sounds really good to me. But in terms of the genres that I most often gravitate towards, I think if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that I love British women's fiction, particularly that written from the early part of the 20th century to the mid to late part of the 20th century. That is the sweet spot for me. I am just an Anglophile at heart. My mom passed on her love of England to me, and I just absolutely love those stories, that very sort of domestic fiction, whether it's about young single women or spinsters or family life, whatever it might be. Give me a small English village, give me life in London, send me to Wales or Scotland or Ireland for that matter. I'll even head off to Australia. So that is definitely the sort of niche that I enjoy the most. I also love mysteries. That's probably my second favorite genre. They're probably tied. I love a good mystery. Agatha Christie is one of my very favorite authors, and other mystery writers who write similarly to her, that sort of a step above the cozy mystery. I'm not a huge fan of very cozy mysteries along the lines of something like a young woman owns a bakery and there's a murder in her town and she decides to solve it for no apparent reason. It's a little too cozy for me. I want a little bit of a bite or an edge to my mystery, but I don't want it to be graphic and I don't want it to be too dark. Somewhere along the Agatha Christie threshold is what I'm looking for. Not to say that I won't read a thriller or a darker mystery on occasion, because I will and do and have, or on the flip side, that I won't read a cozy mystery, because I will and do and have. But that's sort of my sweet spot. Again, I will sometimes read a fantasy, which is not my go-to. I will sometimes read science fiction, which is not my go-to. I will sometimes read romance, which has been an on and off go-to for me throughout my life, but right now we're in more of an off period. Like a true romance novel is what I'm talking about. I do read nonfiction. I read middle grade. And again, there are some exceptions to this, but I don't in general love young adult, particularly modern young adult novels that are being written right now. And I'm really not into sort of the young adult fantasy or romantasy. I just saw that phrase. I was at Barnes & Noble today. Those aren't genres that I'm generally drawn to, but I will never say never. Never say never, because there's always an exception to the rule, but that is generally the genres I enjoy. Question 5. Do you generally prefer character-driven or plot-driven stories? My preference is a character-driven story with a really good plot. I definitely think I need well-drawn characters. That is very important to me. And I don't mind a story that doesn't have a super strong plot, but if it doesn't have a super strong plot, then the characters need to be exceptionally engaging. And I do, for the most part, want some sort of plot, even if it's very just sort of day-to-day life. To me, that's still plot. It doesn't have to be anything super dramatic that happens in order for it to have some sort of plot, whether that's just family life or village life or a single character's day-to-day life. All of that can be plot to me, but I definitely need good characters first and foremost. So yes, but I also, on the flip side, I don't want it to be such an internal character driven novel that there's not a lot of external action happening. I do sometimes struggle with that. I sometimes find in modern novels, especially if the author is trying to be a little bit experimental, that can be challenging for me and not something that I totally enjoy. Although, like I said, never say never, and I'm always willing to at least give something a try. Whether or not it works for me remains to be seen. Question 6. What is a book you love so much that you don't care if others don't like it? What's that one book you love enough for everyone? Well, 100% has to be Happy All the Time. Happy all the time. Happy all the time. Happy all the time. It might be the book I own the most copies of. Happy All the Time by Laurie Colwin. That is the book that I love enough for everyone. I mean, I want other people to love this book because I think it's fabulous and I love Laurie Colwin's writing, but I know she's not for everyone. I know that. And she has a very specific writing style, and she's writing about very specific relationships in a certain moment in time, and that is not for everyone. So this book I'll love enough for all of you. It's okay. It's okay, Happy All the Time. I love you. I do. It's my hug book. I've read it so many times. If anyone comes across any editions that I don't have, let me know. I'm always looking for new editions of Happy All the Time. I would love a first edition. It's like the only book that I care about ever stumbling upon a first edition. If that ever happened, and if it happened to be signed by Laurie Colwin, I might die of happiness. Enough said. Happy all the time. Question 7. What's a book you love so much that if someone doesn't like it, you know your reading tastes don't align? The book or books where a difference of opinion is a strong indicator of different reading preferences. Okay, I was trying to think about this, and I mean, certainly if you don't enjoy the types of books that I enjoy, then our reading tastes don't align. But I couldn't think of just one book that I would say, if this book isn't liked by a given person, that means our reading tastes don't align. Because I think reading tastes sort of go like this. Like, if here's my reading taste, right? Someone else's reading taste is just going to be like this, because I don't think we're ever going to match up exactly, right? Everybody has slight variations to their reading taste. I will say the authors that are here underneath my Jen's Reading Life sign, we have Mary Stewart, D.E. Stevenson, Rosamund Pilcher, Laurie Colwin, and the Emma M. Lyon books by Beth Brower are here on the end. I would say if 0 of those authors appeal to you, then probably our reading tastes don't align. But if you like even one of those authors, then our reading tastes align in at least some way, because I feel like those authors are very representative of the types of books that I like. Oh, and I should throw Agatha Christie in there too. If you like Mary Stewart, D.E. Stevenson, Rosamund Pilcher, Laurie Colwin, Beth Brower, or Agatha Christie, any one of those, then our reading tastes align in some way. But I don't have a single book that I can think of that, if I were to say, do you like The Shell Seekers? And you say no. Well, I wouldn't just give up there. I would ask you about some other books that I love and see if you like any of them. I like a lot of books. I have a lot of favorites. And so I feel like our reading tastes could align somewhere else. And like I said, I do read across a lot of genres. So we have a lot of places we could potentially overlap. Question 8. I love this question because I've never heard this phrase before. What's in your trash pocket? What books, tropes, or themes that you know are bad, but you love them anyway? Is trash pocket a term? I've never heard that before. Am I showing my age by not knowing the term trash pocket? Let me know in the comments, everyone. Okay, I was trying to think of what tropes or themes that I know are bad, but I love them anyway. I can't really think of any tropes or themes per se, but here's a book series that I love that's quite outside what I normally read, and yet every time a new book comes out in this series, I read it. I usually just check it out from the library because I don't feel like I need to own these books and they're easily available. But it's a series. When the pandemic happened, I reread like the first 10 books of the series because it was all I could focus on, was something that was familiar and funny and fun and escapist and was not at all like what was happening in our world at that time. And that series is the Stephanie Plum series by Janet Evanovich. And if you don't know these books, Stephanie Plum is a bounty hunter. She lives in New Jersey and she's terrible at her job. She is about the worst bounty hunter there is. And she has two men in her life. One is a cop. One is like an ex-military guy who runs this like security business. There is just this like on again, off again romance triangle between the three of them. And yes, they're just silly and hilarious and ridiculous. And Stephanie Plum has gone through more cars than any human being has a right to have gone through. Her cars come to the most destructive ends in the most hilarious ways. And it just tickles my funny bone. They are not good literature. They are not the best written, but I just love them. I started reading them in my 20s. My roommate at the time brought them to my attention, I think. That's how I found them. Or somebody brought them to both of our attention and we both started reading them. And I remember having to stifle my laughter riding on mass transit to work because I'd be reading these books and tears would just be pouring down my face. I was laughing so hard. And they still bring me that same amount of joy. I think there's a new one coming out or has just come out, and I do need to put in a request for that for my library. But yes, that is my trash pocket, if that's a thing. So, the Stephanie Plum series by Janet Evanovich. Question 9. Do you have any deal breakers in books? Something that, if present, immediately turns you off from a book? Yes, most definitely. My two biggest deal breakers are any kind of terrible thing happening to children and any kind of terrible thing happening to animals. I can't. It's too hard for me to read about vulnerable people or animals being abused in some way, whatever that might be. That is definitely a no-go for me. And then in terms of the actual writing of a book, I do have one thing that drives me absolutely crazy, and that is really poorly written dialogue. If I am reading dialogue and it does not sound at all like somebody would actually say that in either in real life, if the book is based in our world, or in the world the book is set in, the dialogue needs to sound like it fits in. It needs to fit with the character that is speaking, with their age, with their experience, with what is happening in the scenario. And if that dialogue doesn't ring true to me, that is an absolute turnoff for me. And I will for sure put down or DNF a book where the dialogue is poorly written, because I just want to say to the author that you should have read this out loud and seen how that sounded, and listen to how that sounded, because I think that's a very simple thing to do when you're writing, is to then either you read it aloud or have somebody read it aloud to you, or read the dialogue with someone to see how it sounds, because I think it's easily fixable. But I do think it's something that's incredibly hard to do. And when an author does dialogue really, really well, you won't notice it. But I think that is a skill that is highly underrated in writing, because I don't think it's easy to do dialogue at all. Question 10. What's a strong opinion you have about a book released within the last year, whether it's overrated, underrated, or just a book you need to share? I hate to speak badly about this book. And the book itself is fine. I mean, if it was just a book that stood alone, that wasn't a part of a long-running series that I absolutely love, I probably would have said it was good. I enjoyed it. And I did think it was well written. This author is a great writer. But I have some feelings about this book. And that book is The Gray Wolf by Louise Penny. You guys, I have been reading The Three Pines, Inspector Armand Gamache, since Still Life first came out in paperback in the US. And that was many, many, many years ago. And I can't even remember how I discovered it, but I found it. I had my mom read it. I had my aunt read it. I gave it to all my friends to read. I was like, you have to read this book. It's so good. And I have read every single book in the series, and I am fully caught up. And I actually won an ARC of this book from Goodreads and was so excited. I hate to say that I was disappointed, but I was disappointed. And the main reason I'm disappointed in this is because I want this series to go back to its roots a little bit. I want it to return to those sort of smaller mysteries where we're solving a crime of some kind that's going to get wrapped up in the single novel, and not this larger than life on a global scale event happening that somehow the characters in this book have gotten involved in. I mean, as much as it doesn't seem plausible that the small village of Three Pines could have many, many murders happen in it, it also doesn't seem plausible to me that the characters in this book would become involved with a global conspiracy that's happening. And it did not get wrapped up in this book. The next book in the series, I think, is going to wrap up that storyline. And for the very first time ever in the history of my reading this series, am I considering not reading the next book. I'm not going to pre-order it, which I normally do. I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed. And I do hope that after she wraps this up, she does go back and write a more sort of closed loop mystery, because I feel like that's where these books really, really excelled. That is my thoughts. That being said, the Three Pines Mystery Series is fantastic. I mean, this is book, 19, 20, something like that. I can't even remember, 21? I don't know. She's written so many. If you've never read it, if you love mystery series that are sort of police procedurals, then I highly recommend Louise Penny. She's a fantastic writer. She's Canadian. The stories are set in Canada. And yes, I have just loved this series so much. So I'm hoping we go back to the things I really enjoy about these books. And I miss the characters of Three Pines, because we just don't get enough of them in these books where she's taking some of the characters to other places. So that is my thought on that. Question 11. What do you look for in writing? What makes a book stand out to you? Is it prose style, themes, voice, structure, or something else? I certainly want the writing to be engaging. And that's a very subjective word, because what's engaging to me might not be engaging to somebody else. I definitely want there to be a voice and a tone to the book, whatever that might be, but it needs to feel grounded in whatever the world of the book is. And I definitely want there to be good dialogue. I think my preference is probably not to have huge descriptions of things. I do like descriptions. I do like descriptions of the setting, of the natural world, of, the small details of life. But I don't necessarily want that to go on for pages and pages and pages. I do want the pace of the writing to move along. And if it's going to be a sort of quieter, slower novel, I want that to be very well established from the beginning so that I know that's the pace that I'm setting for myself. So I want the pace to feel right for the particular book. I feel like I'm not answering this question well. It's one of those, I know it when I read it. I know what I like when I read it. I'm not sure if I can well articulate it, however. Question 12. How do you decide what to read next? Do you plan ahead, mood read, or follow external factors, hype, recommendation, arcs? I do a few different things. First off, of course, I read anything that I have for book clubs, buddy reads, group reads, anything like that that's going on. Those go to the top of my TBR. And then I do love to mood read, as I have mentioned many, many times. I love to read seasonally, so I'm always drawn to books that are set in whatever the current season is. So right now I'm feeling very summery, and things set in the warmer months of the year, or when people are on vacations or holidays or what have you. Very much drawn by those things. I do sometimes get sucked into the hype, or I hear about a book, even if it's a book that's just sitting on my shelf and somebody mentions it and, oh, it sparks a memory, and suddenly I want to grab that book and pick it up and read it right now. So yes, that influences me, but definitely mood reading, seasonal reading, and book club, buddy reads, group reads. Those are my main go-tos. Question 13. Where do you get inspiration for your booktube content? What sparks your video ideas? Other creators, trends, personal reading experiences? Geez, all of the above. I'm always on the lookout for content ideas. I get content ideas from people leaving them in the comments of my videos. I sometimes just get random inspiration for things. Of course, I sort of follow some of the content ideas that lots of other booktubers do, like putting out a TBR video or doing wrap-ups. I'm trying to get into doing more reading vlogs or, that type of a thing. And then I really just want to share the books that I love. And so I'm trying to come up with unique ways to identify that content. And yeah, I get inspiration from all kinds of sources. Even sometimes I'll see something, somewhere else, just on Instagram or Facebook, or just, reading an article online about something, or watching a movie or a TV show, and sometimes something will spark an idea with me. You just never know when inspiration will strike. And I do keep a just running notes list on my phone so that if I'm out and about and, I'm not at home sitting at my desk, I can quickly jot down ideas and just always have this ongoing running list of content ideas. So that is how inspiration strikes. All right, we are almost to the end. The final two questions. Question 14 is, if you could make any book go viral right now, what would it be? A book you think deserves more attention, and why? Because my channel is all about the backlist books, about books I feel are underrated and need more attention, I could have picked so many different books that I would love to go viral, but I'm going to go with one that I just read a couple of months ago. We read this for the Cozy Reader Book Club, and I think it's a book that definitely deserves more recognition than it currently has, and that is Oh, the Brave Music by Dorothy Evelyn Smith. This book should be named alongside books like A Tree Grows in Brooklyn and I Capture the Castle as a wonderful example of the coming of age novel. I think way more people should be reading this than are actually reading it, and I'm so glad that we read this for the Cozy Reader Book Club. I'm so glad that the British Library women writers have republished this, and if I can push this into anyone else's hands, here's me pushing it into your hands right now. Go get this book. If you enjoy coming of age novels, I can't recommend this one enough. It is fantastic. I just loved it. Spoiler alert, it is going to be probably in my top 5, maybe my top 3 books of the year. That's how much I loved it. It is going on my forever favorites. It is fantastic. Definitely going to be one I reread again and again. And the final question, question 15, is, who are some booktubers with reading tastes similar to yours? Okay, so I think there are quite a few out there who have similar reading tastes to mine. So I'm just going to name a few. Number 1, I don't think she needs any introduction at all. Many of you have said you think of me as the American version of this booktuber, and that is Miranda Mills. And I'm beyond flattered to be even mentioned in the same sentence as her, because I love her book recommendations. I love her channel. I have been following her for years and years and years. Back when she used to have just a podcast, I listened to her back then. And that was many, many years ago. Yes, absolutely Miranda Mills. We have very, very similar reading tastes. And then my good friend, Kate Howe. We have very similar reading tastes. We definitely diverge in some areas, but we definitely have sort of a core reading taste alignment. And I can always count on Kate to give wonderful recommendations. And I have read so many great books because of her. And she's one of the main reasons I started my channel. And so yes, love Kate. And I hope she's able to come back and start making videos more regularly at some point. But yes, she's wonderful. And she has a ton of videos. If you've never watched Kate before, I'll have all these channels linked down in the description box below. So be sure to go and check them out if you enjoy my videos. I mentioned my friend Miriam from Miriam Elizabeth Reads. She's who I first saw this tag video from. And Miriam and I, again, our reading tastes align in many ways and then diverge in some ways. But she is another person who I feel like when she reviews a book that's in a genre that I also like to read, that I can count on that probably being a book I'm going to love as well. And then another one is Gina Stanier. I love Gina's channel, and she is so lovely, and we have very similar reading tastes in a lot of ways. She loves Rosamund Pilcher, as I do. She loves a good like older protagonist, which is something that I love as well. And I just love getting book ideas from her, and I love how she just sort of sits and chats at the camera, and she's so natural and so lovely, and love Gina. I think our tastes very much align. And then also Emily from Woldenburn Reads. Emily and I very much have similar reading tastes. We love the same kind of like cozy, comforting reads. We definitely have reading tastes that overlap. Again, as with anybody, not everything is going to be exactly the same, but we very much like many of the same books. And I could go on and on and on and on. But those are just a few of the booktubers who come to mind when I think of those whose reading tastes align with mine. And that will do it for the Get to Know My Reading Taste tag. Thank you so much for coming along with me while I answered all of these questions. And let's chat down in the comments. I would love to hear your answers to any or all of these questions. I especially love those questions about what's a book you love enough that if other people don't love it, you love it enough for everyone. Or also, I would love to know if you have answers to if there's a book that somebody else doesn't like that you know for sure that your reading tastes are not going to align, because I find those questions both really fascinating. But again, answer any of the questions in the comments below, or just share your thoughts on my answers or your thoughts on some of these questions in general. Let's talk all thing reading taste down in the comments. And if you have a booktube channel and you have not done this tag, consider yourself tagged, and definitely let me know if you do this video so that I can go and check yours out as well. Or if you've already done this one and I haven't seen it, definitely link your video in the comments so I can go watch that, because I would love to see those videos. This was so much fun to do. And if you're here, but you don't have anything you'd like to add in the comments and yet want to let me know that you were here, because comments really do help my channel, Why don't you leave your favorite food emoji down in the comments below, since we're talking about tastes, right? Food has a taste. Leave your favorite food emojis. I do love seeing those and knowing you were here. And like I said, those comments really do help my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, if you could hit that like button and subscribe if you aren't already subscribed, I would love to have you join my bookish community. And thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day here with me in my cozy corner of BookTube. And I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye!